Greetings and welcome. I'm Psychic Medium Roberto, and I truly hope you're doing well today. I'm guided by Spirit, and let's hit that bell icon for new episode alerts. Trigger warning: the subject matter is of a mature nature and deals with true crime events. Disclaimer: all cases are treated as alleged until proven in a court of law. Alright, so I'm going to be looking at a childhood hero. Who would have thought I'd be doing a case of Gary Coleman? And just some anecdotal information. Being in South Africa in the early days when I was growing up, and when he was starting to become famous, he was the first celebrity I sent a letter to as a young kid, probably 2 years younger than him, during his fame, and I received a signed autograph from him. So that was my little moment in the treacherous world as we know as Hollywood, right? So I'm going to be looking at Gary Coleman. There's obviously some suspicion around his death. I'm going to be looking at a profile of his date of birth as well as his partner at the time, Shannon Price. They were married but were still together in the last couple of years while he was alive. And then I'm going to look at his case. I beg your pardon, there's one out of place here. And then to see, was he murdered or not? And of course, we all know Gary Coleman from many movies and series, particularly Different Strokes. And the kid with the 200 IQ really had an impact on me as a kid, funny enough. And so let's have a look here. All right, so let's start with Gary Coleman's date of birth, born February the 8th, 1968. And we see the 28101, and he is a life path 7. So interesting with life path 7s, particularly when you're in the media space, can become very famous. And we know, of course, he was very famous. Now, Life Path 7 as well speaks about freedom of movement. And of course, in the later years, I mean, his whole life, he was plagued by kidney issues. So if I had to look at his date of birth, the 8 is the voice and the performance part of him. And the 2 is where we'll find his emotional center. And we know he was quite emotional. And of course, growing up with, we can say, in a sense, a disability will impact him over time. And I would suspect played an important role in shaping who he would become in his end days. The 10-1 is very interesting because the 10-1 speaks about mass, large audience, and it also speaks about money. And born in 1968, he has the 24-6, which is a very soft number, connection number, family, friends, connection. And the 10-1 with the 24-6 gives us the outcomes 34, 25, 16, 7. So interestingly, 16-7, I haven't looked at this from his perspective, but 16-7 speaks about the psychic. I wonder if he was actually very spiritually inclined and would listen to his ancestors or spirits in guidance in the work that he did, because he certainly had that ability with the 16-7. Now, the 16-7 also speaks about performance arts and the movies that he would play in. So very prevalent in his numbers. And I would say overall, these are good numbers. I don't see any out and out negative aspects on his numbers. Of course, he's had his fair share of running with law, with anger management. And I would just say the anger would come from the 8s. and the 6. 6 is about anger. And, 6, people with 6s, and this is not everyone, but the likelihood of, say, like illnesses related to viruses and disease comes from the number 6. So that's where we could find his kidney situation and the hardships that he would have to endure just from a medical point of view. Of course, he did enjoy huge amounts of fame, as we know. So when we look at Shannon Price, and then we'll do a comparison at her date of birth, August 28. So yeah, is interesting. So she also has an 8. I don't know what her background is, to be honest. But when you have the 28-10-1, that is on the positive aspect, gift to the gab. It also speaks about larger groups that you can handle. And of course, we can say the 10-1 matches Gary's, but we'll get there in a minute. The issue with 8s, and this is, and even if, I've got an 8 and people with 8s, this is where the temperature comes from when people get angry or cross. So she's got double of that. And of course, based on my preliminary research and what I've read about the couple, there were some heated exchanges. So when you both have an 8, that is like, shouting matches confirmed. Now, with the combination of her 8 and the 28 gives us the hidden 36-9 and the 18-9. So in her own right, if she was an artist, she has very good artistic numbers. And these can also be very spiritual numbers as well. The 23-5 in the year that she's born speaks about communities, larger groupings. And she has a life path 5. Now, on the positive, it's the diplomat, it's the exchange, it's a 14-5 is a good business number, speaks about foreign exchange, foreign trade, import, export. But she also has a couple of destructive numbers, 41-5 and 32-5. And these will bring around issues of dependency, drugs, and negative behavior. And the 32-5 is almost a contradiction of the 23-5. It's the exact opposite. So she's born in a year that speaks about building communities, but in her outcome also speaks about her destructive behavior within those communities. So, like I said, I don't know her intimate details or what she's done, but this I would just say, if we had to look at them together, these are very, I almost want to say opposites, okay? Because someone with a 14-5-5 life path can hamper someone with a 7. Remember, 7 is about freedom, and then when you get these 14-5s, kind of can restrict that freedom. Personally, I would say that it's not a great match. Just from a numbers point of view, of course, context and their backgrounds are important as well. But, I just had this feeling now that, for example, if Gary Coleman needed compassion and he needed love and support, it's not going to be really coming from these set of numbers, unfortunately. So if we had to look at and compare the two of them, they match on their 8s. So let me just zero him here quickly. So they've got the 10-1, so that is about the group and organization. Let's have a look here. There compares. And there's very little else that actually connects these guys. So, interestingly, with the 8s, does speak about a physicalness. And of course, their physicalness is, of course, in quite contrast from size point of view. But they have the 10-1 match, so better for the group. And they have matches in the 8, but very little else connects them. So I would say, looking at their anchored numbers here, 23-5 versus 24-6, I don't believe this was a karmic relationship at all. This was a relationship. I have my doubts about this relationship, to be quite honest. And it ties up in what we're going to see in what transpired with Gary Coleman. So I acknowledge weeks or months before he was having seizures and he was prone to seizures. Yes, I accept that. And of course, on one hand, one could say he had a seizure, and the theory is that he fell down the stairs, and that his partner at the time, ex-wife, but still partner, still together, Shannon made either a very weird or interesting comment on a video that I saw, that when she heard him fall or found him on the bottom of the stairs, she didn't want to go near the body because she didn't want to be implicated in the death or injury of Gary Coleman. Now, if you're really committed to someone, you would be more concerned about their well-being than being implicated in his death. And like I mentioned, when you get these 14-5s, they don't give a shit. All right, so let's look at the sequence here. May 25, and then, so May 26 is the registered day where he has the fall. And he becomes unconscious continuing into May 27. And he is taken off life support on May 28, 2010, Mr. Gary Coleman. So let's look at the day where the accident happens, and I've included the day before. Now, we have the 8 at the start of the day here. Now, 26-8, now if we take it purely on a interpersonal basis, because that also speaks about a staging, but we'll get there. When he was younger, he had such a beautiful look in his face, very cute. Okay, so on a interpersonal level, 26-8, there's an argument or there's hostility in the air. And as mentioned, they've got 8s. So there's a heated issue going on here. There's an argument that has taken place here. This wasn't she was busy somewhere and he was busy somewhere. When they woke up that morning, there was tension in the air. And I just have doubts whether the accident actually happened on May 26, to be quite frank and honest about it. The May 25, what do we see here? There's already an issue here, 25-7. There's an issue between two people in a union. So 2 is the couple. The 5 is the issue with an outcome 7. So this will ping directly on Gary now with the 7 outcome here. So if we had to look along this line, 25-7, there's conflict in a union, which results in this is a fight argument here. And it can be physical. So 6 and 8 combined, and I've mentioned this in previous episodes, that when you have a 6 and 8 combination in an argument situation, it's horrible words. It's words you don't want to say because you'll regret them later. It's that kind of argument. And because the outcome is an 8, it brings around physicality, physicalness. So May 25, we see there's an issue, and unfortunately it takes place in May 5. Now, the reason why I say that is because 5 in the main or in general brings around difficulties. Okay, so there's going to be a highlight on Shannon during this period of time. Okay. Now, if we proceed in the day, we see a hidden 33. If we proceed in the day, we see a hidden 33. So there's issues here. The temperature, in my opinion, is high when you have conflict, physical altercation, feminine outburst. And what do we see here? We see a mass of 3s. So this also pings on feminine energy. But it also says things are out of control. Now, I'll say again, I'm not discounting the fact that he had anger issues. There were issues. But on this day, it was impacting him. And we see all of these 3s. Things were out of control here. And now we see this open 33-6. And I'm sorry to say, that is not a good number. And we see the 6. So this day is pinging heavily on Gary. In that we see the 7. We see the 7s. And we have the 6 impact on him as well. So a lot of anger in the air. And a lot of aggression. And a lot of out of controlness. Okay, so in my opinion, if, let's just say, on this day, yeah, there's issues, big issues, and I'm not liking this 33-6 here at all. In fact, it will actually reveal a murder here. Let me just, so these are the +3, +6, +9 of the so-called day of the events. And quite interestingly, now I'm just going to do what I've shown here, but I'm going to come back and complete this, because this day here, what I can see without putting out the numbers, there's an 18-9 in the sequence here, but it actually reveals itself later again, because 3 days after the event, which is 28, here's it here actually. So I'm just going to take this here. So this serves then as the reflection day of what transpired on the +3 of the day before. So we see a 28-10-1. This is a huge argument here, ladies and gentlemen. So it confirms here as well. There is arguments and heated exchange, physical exchange here happening. 28-10-1. Now, I will just say, in keeping things objective, 15-6 can speak about Gary being a doer. I was going to say doers, which is a South African word, but let's just say 15-6 is the arsehole. Okay, let's be frank. He's been a dick. But there's a hidden 33-6 here, which is bothering me completely. There's a hidden agenda. And we note that the 33-6 revealed itself actually on the day. So what I'm seeing here is there's a level of premeditation. Things have got out of hand, and I've had enough of enough, right? Sorry to say. 36-9 is actually quite a terrible way to die. And unfortunately, when we look at this picture here, it gives me the complete creeps, her leaning over him, and Gary completely defenseless about this. And we see a murder here, ladies and gentlemen. There's an 18-9 here. So what is going on? So if we look at the registered day, right? So this is the day that the so-called fall happens, or he is discovered and sent to the hospital, right? So we see a 13-4 here, death. And I'll just make it orange. 34-7, 16-7. That pings directly on Gary. So the impact is obviously on Gary here. So the 268, now that I'm thinking about it, the 268, let's take it from what the doctors say. So 6 can speak about a head injury, head, 6, head, which impacts the brain, 8. Okay. When we start looking at the summary reflection zones, there's disturbing numbers on the scene here, unfortunately. So 29-11-2 can speak about the issue of, is he going to live? Is he going to die? 50-50 situation here. But the issue is, for me, there's a 9 here. So there's murder in the air. Okay. The 34-7, 16-7 pings, of course, on Gary. So there's Gary in the center of the issue. But what is the number leading up after this? This is where I get bothered. 37-10-1. Who else is involved in this situation? Who else is involved in this situation here? And those are those higher ups. So we go deeper, beg your pardon. In the +6 summary zone, we start getting more information. There's a conflict. So here's the conflict. 5 plus a 32-5. Very interesting. Very interesting. So who has a 32-5? 32-5. There's a conflict between two people here. It also involves higher ups because, again, it's revealed. 37. There's more than Shannon involved here, unfortunately, Mr. Gary Coleman. Because we see the Godfathers, the 40 with an outcome 4. The Godfathers are present, or the criminals. So when we go into the +9, we start seeing the full story. So here's the 35-8. Now, again, 35-8, if we take it on the actual, right? So 8 speaks about the brain. But the problem again, you've got a 5 here. And when you start seeing these kind of numbers, you know there's been underhandedness. 35-8 is almost like forced into this situation. So was he hit, pushed, and we recall the staircase murders. We see a hidden 44, so now this is even more alarming. And a death on Gary Coleman. So in my opinion, unfortunately, there's more than meets the eye in this case, where we have higher ups making decisions, and we've got fathers or higher ups, the dons, making decisions as well. So if we look at the day that he remains unconscious, which is this situation here, we see on the day 27-9, there's a level of premeditation. A level of premeditation. 14-5, foul play, ladies and gentlemen, foul play. What we know about the story is a lie. And who's got a 14-5 as well? Problems. Problems. And in fact, this 15-6 that I'm looking at now, this is the day they switched off his life support. There's a 15-6 here, so there's also a perversion of things going on here. There's something off here. Let me just see here, because the question I'm getting is, could he have had a seizure and fallen? And I'm going to say no. We got the day before this. This to me is the day here, actually. May 25, late in the evening, into the morning, we've got problems here. So in my opinion, this wasn't an accident. And there's higher ups involved here as well, again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I have for you on the Gary Coleman case. What a lovely character when he was young. And of course, everyone becomes exploited and abused, taken advantage of when he was such a kid. And things could have been managed better for him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please leave your thoughts and comments. I do love engaging with them. Have a lovely week, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.